All right, welcome into Big Hitters Only, brought to you by Delta Spirits. Drink deltaspirits.com. Use promo code BHO for refreshing THC cannabis beverage. All right, very special guest. We got Brian Murphy on from WRAL. It is 7:04 a.m. on Wednesday, July 2nd. We're catching Brian before he goes on vacation. Where are you heading, Brian?
Headed to Chicago for the 4th of July.
Nice. So it's awesome. We got to catch Brian. Does a lot of we've had him on before, but kind of an investigative. Describe your role again for us with WRL.
Sure, I like to say I cover everything off the field.
That's right.
So NIL, conference realignment, contracts, coaching changes. In this case, an athletic director change.
Love it. All right, big news broke on Tuesday, July 1st, the first day of revenue share. UNC announced that current athletic director Bubba Cunningham is going to be in that role for one more year. He signed a 2-year contract, will stay on for 2 more years. But next summer, Steve Newmark, the president of RFK Racing, will take over the athletic department at UNC and become the athletic director next year. So next summer. And it's huge news. I mean, we were expecting or kind of wondering what the transition was going to be for Bubba Cunningham. He's in his 60s. He's been UNC's athletic director since 2011, and they've made the move. Kind of did it behind the scenes with no announcement, and it's a succession plan. That's the big point here. Bubba's staying on as an advisor once he steps down from the AD role and will help the transition. And Steve Newmark, the new AD, will have a full year to kind of learn the position, learn the role. This is a money-based decision, a revenue-based decision, with the changing of the times, with how everything is now NIL and revenue share and sponsorship driven. Brian, your initial thoughts when you saw this news about how UNC's handling it, and we'll dive in it more on Bubba's role and Newmark's role moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, my first take was that it was kind of confusing, right? The headline of the press release said Bubba Cunningham had signed a 2-year extension.
Yeah.
Didn't really get into the Newmark role until later. What you realize when you look through it, Bubba Cunningham had a contract through 2027 to be the athletic director. That's actually ending a year early. He's going to be out as athletic director in 2026. Now he signed what they call a 2-year extension. So he's got actually, after 1 year of being one more year of being AD, he's got 3 years of working as this senior advisor to the chancellor. And we can get into what that role may entail, and it may be a big role. And Steve Newmark is coming in August in this executive, athletic director role to handle the revenue sports, and then he will take over in 2026. So one of my big takeaways was that even though this is being sold as Bubba Cunningham's getting a 2-year extension, his actual time as AD is being cut short by a year, which I found, most interesting out of the whole thing until we get to the Newmark part, which, is fascinating to hire someone with very, very little college experience. I mean, no experience working in a collegiate athletic department, some college experience, as an outsider, but, very interesting how this all went down. And then one part I think that's been overlooked, and I reported a little bit about it, is the Board of Trustees was cut out of this process completely. They had no idea that this was happening. This was a Lee Roberts special. His decision, along with Bubba Cunningham, it sounds like they worked together a little bit, but this was Lee Roberts' decision from an administrative standpoint. It did not involve the Board of Trustees at all.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I read your article this morning. Make sure you check out WRAL. Brian has a pretty in-depth article with some solid reporting on there within 24 hours of the news. So let me ask this. Do you think Bubba Cunningham was pushed out in any way?
I'm not sure I feel comfortable. Yeah, I'm not sure I feel comfortable saying he was pushed out. But,
yeah.
I mean, anytime your contract ends a year before it was supposed to, I think it leads to more questions. Bubba Cunningham told me, and I talked to him yesterday, the time was right. The athletic department's in a good spot. He just felt like this was the right time to begin this transition. That he and others around him have taken, the baton this far, and it's time to hand it off to someone else. I mean, kind of fitting that this happens on the first day that schools are allowed to directly share revenue with athletes because, I mean, revenue sharing, I think, is at the heart of all this. The budget is at the heart of all this. I think you can trace this all the way back to Lee Roberts' hire. Lee Roberts got hired. He was not someone who had a ton of college experience. He was hired to grow North Carolina, the University of North Carolina, both student population, revenue, endowment, all of it. Then, they hired Bill Belichick to be the football coach. His job was to grow the football program, grow revenue, grow on-field success, grow the football program into something that produces money for the entire department, but also positions North Carolina to take advantage of the next round of conference realignment. Then they hired a chief revenue officer. His job is to grow revenue. I mean, Rick Barracat is, going. His job is to basically sell sponsorships to anything he can, including Kenan Stadium, generate as much revenue as he can. And now you have this change at athletic director, bringing in someone with a lot of experience in selling sponsorships, turning athletics into money. I mean, that's basically what he did at NASCAR. You have to get everything sponsored in NASCAR. And I don't think it's an accident that those 4 hires in succession over the last, year and a half, 2 years are all about revenue generation at a time when the school and the athletic department needs more money than ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. It's kind of all led up to this. I think we'll look back at Tuesday, July 1st, as like the change, where everything led up to it, and then this is where UNC made a direct shift to, I mean, it is all money now, and it is generating revenue, it is getting sponsorships, it is figuring out a way to pay players. They have the $20.5 million from revenue share, but that's not going to support all the NIL. They need to get to players. You got to find other ways to make it happen. The hiring of Steve Newmark marks a new regime change in athletics, and it'll be interesting to see what happens from here. Let's back up a little bit. And I asked that question about Bubba, whether he's pushed out. I mean, I don't know, but I like Bubba. I mean, I've had interaction with him. I know him. Covered UNC for 8 years. I think he's been a great athletic director. But you're right. Like, it is such a different role now than it was when he took it in 2011. I tweeted this out that, like, he is a traditional old school AD. He played a sport. He grew up. His whole career has been with athletic programs, working his way up. Notre Dame. He was an AD in the MAC. Worked his way up, and then got one of the premier jobs at UNC. So he's the old school traditional way. And now, like you said, they're hiring a guy who's never worked in athletics. He has a legal background. He's worked for a big time law firm in Charlotte. I'm not a big law firm guy, but Robertson Bradshaw, I guess, is the law firm he worked for, which is a pretty big law firm. They've handled a lot of litigation with the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, which is very interesting. And of course, then he moved on to take the role with RFK Racing in Charlotte, dealing with sponsorships, generating revenue, and kind of in athletics in a different sense. The BOT move, what does that mean that Lee Roberts didn't go through the BOT to hire this move? I think Lee Roberts, I think he had a rough start with the whole Palestine-Israeli stuff that was a lose-lose for him. But since then, I think he has been very impressive in everything he's done and being very hands-on in athletics, whether that be Belichick and now with Steve Newmark. And then the confusing aspect of the BOT, like, what are your thoughts on that dynamic now? Because the BOT's kind of, they've kind of neutered Bubba many times as well in certain hires. So it's just such an interesting dynamic now that Roberts, who supported Bubba, did not involve the BOT in this huge decision.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen friction, bubble up into the public between the Board of Trustees and Bubba Cunningham, both over, management of the athletic department, the Mac Brown the Mac Brown firing, and then the Belichick hiring. But if you'll recall, in February, after the Belichick hiring, actually in January, it came out in February, the UNC system president, Peter Hans, sent a directive to the Board of Trustees basically saying, you guys have lost some of your authority when it comes to athletics. I don't like the way that you handled the Belichick thing. There were, a reminder that, hey, no individual on the Board of Trustees can negotiate contracts, should be in contact with job candidates. Everyone, including myself, took that as a rebuke of how the Belichick hire was handled. We know that Board of Trustees members, not the entire board, but certain members, were in contact with the Belichick camp throughout that entire process. We know that some members of the board were pushing very hard for Belichick to be the next head coach. They got what they wanted. Belichick is the next head coach at the University of North Carolina. But Peter Hans saw what was happening, basically said this is repeated behavior from the Board of Trustees at UNC, and I am stripping some of your authority away when it comes to college athletics. He also said that he needs to have sign-off. Peter Hans, the system president, needs to have sign-off on certain athletic decisions, and this being one of them. So university spokesman told me yesterday that Roberts and Hans both signed off on these moves, not only the Cunningham move, but the Newmark move, and they went around the Board of Trustees. Now, when I say around, it makes it sound like they did something nefarious. The Board of Trustees has no authority at the moment when it comes to decisions like this. So it's not that they did anything wrong, but Lee Roberts made this decision on his own, maybe in consultation with some others, but definitely not in consultation with the Board of Trustees, who seemed as surprised as the rest of us when this decision came down.
Yeah. So, I mean, they didn't have to have a role, and so Lee Roberts took his authority given to him by Peter Hans. Peter Hans kind of hand-selected Lee Roberts, I believe, when he was named interim chancellor, and then chancellor.
Hans was on the selection committee. Yeah, he was on the selection committee that chose Roberts, and obviously has to present a candidate to the Board of Governors. And so, Lee Roberts was on the Board of Governors. So, they've worked together for quite a while, and I think that that relationship is instructive when you look at how did North Carolina land on Steve Newmark.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like it's Game of Thrones stuff, man. Because it was crazy how much the Board of Trustees had a role in the Belichick hire. John Pryor and the woman whose name escapes me. She has like four different names. Jennifer Lloyd, yeah. Interesting there. All right, let's get back into Newmark. And then I think we'll dive into what Bubba's role will be, and then we'll get out of here. So Newmark, I don't think many people know about him. He's a Chapel Hill native. He went to high school. I know some of the guys. I lived in Chapel Hill for 8 years. I know some of his classmates at Chapel Hill High School. So this guy grew up around Carolina, probably grew up a Carolina fan, went to William and Mary for undergrad, and then Virginia Law School, and then started his law career, did some stuff with some judges, and then the NASCAR stuff. What do you know about him? What can you tell us about him? I texted some sources because I know people that are friends with him. It seems like people are pretty excited about how sharp he is and his deal making. That's kind of what I got from him. What can you tell us about Steve Newmark in this role, what he'll bring, what he's like, and what do you expect kind of in the next couple of years from him?
Yeah, the reason I mentioned that Roberts had been, or that Hans had been on the search committee for Roberts and things like that, is because Steve Newmark, I don't know the connections. Obviously, a Chapel Hill, native and a UNC fan, and obviously in a powerful position in sports as the president of that racing team. He was on the advisory committee that led to Bill Belichick being hired. He is also on the search committee for the new executive director of the Rams club. So it's clear that he's had a working relationship. Yeah.
How does that work? Like, they just pick people who they think could be impactful and helpful in those search committees? Because he has no connection to UNC athletics when he's tapped to be on these committees.
Right. That's the part I find the most interesting. I have not been able to really drill down into that question to find out how you just randomly get picked to be on these things. But there's obviously a connection there, somehow, whether it's with Bubba Cunningham or whether it's with Lee Roberts. There's obviously a connection. Now, when you get into those circles, as I've learned, everyone knows everyone. Right, especially a guy who's a Chapel Hill native. I'm sure that there are some connections that I haven't been able to draw just yet. That how he fits into the kind of the circle of trust of the people that they trust to be making these decisions. But he was on the search committee for Belichick. He is on the search committee for the new executive director of the Rams club. And so there's been interaction, obviously, between him and Roberts, between him and Cunningham. And it sounds like through that work, this is what Bubba Cunningham told me, through that work, they got to know each other. And obviously he decided to make this move. We spoke to somebody who works for him at RFK Racing, formerly Roush Racing. I don't know how many listeners are into the NASCAR scene, but now it's Roush Fenway Brad Keselowski Racing. So RFK. Um, we spoke to somebody who works there, and he said, in NASCAR, money buys speed, and Steve Newmark has been great at cutting deals, renewing deals, moving the team into a new revenue generation era. And he told us that that's going to translate when you get to Carolina. And obviously, money buys speed in NASCAR. Well, money buys everything here in the new world of college athletics. Also heard that he's not a micromanager. He's going to hire his team, hire his people, and let them get to work. Again, we're talking to someone who is currently employed by RFK Racing. It works under Newmark. But it's always good to hear from people who have worked with the guy. And Bubba Cunningham said that he thinks that Newmark is going to be fine on that side of the job. Fine on the sponsorships, fine on the deals, fine on that side. And that it's his job, Cunningham's job, over the next 10 months or however long it may be, 12 months, to introduce him to everybody he knows in college athletics. That's at the NCAA level, the ACC level, other ADs, coaches, the Nike guys, the Learfield guys. I mean, all the people that are involved in athletics. But, being president of a race car team is like being president of an NFL franchise or an MLB franchise. And we've seen guys go back and forth between those kind of jobs. Kevin Warren was the president of the Big Ten, and now he's the president, or was, the commissioner of the Big Ten. Now he's a team president for the Chicago Bears. Previously, he worked in a upper management level with the Minnesota Vikings. And so I think these roles are becoming very similar as college athletics becomes kind of pro sports. I think we're going to see the pool of potential ADs grow. I mean, we've seen TV executives get these kind of jobs, both at Notre Dame and Syracuse. I think we're going to see high-end executives in other sports franchises be available to take these AD jobs as it becomes more about, sponsorship and revenue generation.
Yeah, I mean, being AD is a complicated role. Sure, it's evolved into revenue, sponsorships, brokering deals, working with sponsors, figuring out the rev share stuff like percentages. We had Dan Murphy on yesterday with ESPN. You'll probably listen to this podcast and he'll come up next or be on the next podcast. But, deciding which athletic programs get how much, and how much is going to basketball, how much is going to football, what can baseball get, what can women's basketball get, how do you help out Olympic sports? That's a whole new thing that you would think Steve Newmark can figure out, but there's so much more to being an AD. Hiring coaches, communications, strength conditioning, facilities, working with academics and figure out that aspect of the job. It is a comprehensive job to be an athletic director, but you have people that work for you that can kind of handle a lot of stuff. So it's a leadership role, it's a delegation role, it's a communication role, and then it's just making a lot of decisions role. So yeah, I think there's gonna be a sharp learning curve initially, but I think the succession plan that Bubba and Lee Roberts laid out makes sense for kind of who they hired, and Bubba will be there holding his hand if needed for the next 2 years.
I mean, North Carolina's athletic department budget is about $150 million. It's going to jump to about $170 million next year. And we're going to be talking about a $200 million department, before too many years get on here. And so that's what you're in charge of. Now it's small potatoes compared to the entire, UNC, the school, the university. But it's maybe one of the more important roles because it is the most visible part of what the university does. So you're running a $200 million division of this larger enterprise. There's a lot of delegation, a lot of different job titles in that. And the AD is sort of the face of it all.
So this has to be one of the steps to get UNC in the SEC, right? Or position themselves for the Big Ten or the SEC when that time comes, right? We're sitting here in 2025, 11 years from when the grant of rights of the ACC ends in 2036. Like, all this is building up to position UNC for that move, correct? Is that kind of how you see it? Bill Belichick, Lee Roberts, Steve Newmark, adding enrollment, get the facilities figured out. So when that time comes, when that GOR ends, UNC's ready?
Yeah, I mean, I think the timing is a little different than that. I mean, we're talking 2030, 2031,
Yeah.
2032. And we've seen with the agreement with Clemson and Florida State, the exit fees kind of get capped around that time. If you look at all the media rights deals, including the Big Ten's deal, that 2030, 2031, 2032 timeframe is when the next wave of realignment is going to happen. We're not even finished with the current wave of realignment, but that's when the next wave is going to take place. And I don't know if it's necessarily get UNC to the SEC or get UNC to the Big Ten. I think it's to position UNC to be in the top tier of whatever comes next. If it's a breakaway of 40 to 50 schools, if it is getting in one of those major conferences, then I just think all this is about how do we best position North Carolina to be in that conversation. Certainly, being in North Carolina, the state, which is soon going to be the 7th largest state in the country, does not have a team in the SEC or the Big Ten, makes it one of the most attractive options out there. But, we've heard a lot of talk about Florida State, obviously Notre Dame. There are other schools in that competition. And so I think this is all about sustainability and elevating the North Carolina athletic department. When you'll talk to some people around athletics who will say, this all should have happened 15 years ago. I mean, what's Bubba been doing for the last 14 years? I think that's a little bit of an unfair criticism because the world has changed so dramatically in that time. I mean, when he first got hired, they were dealing with a huge academic scandal. When was the last time you heard anyone get suspended for grades or be ineligible to compete? I mean, academics isn't even a problem anymore when it comes to athletics. Bubba told us yesterday that, the biggest tension when he first got the job was between your sport and school. Like, how do you balance all of that? He said now the biggest tension in athletic departments is economic tension. How do we make sure that we have the resources to be competitive? How do we distribute those resources? How do we keep all 28 sports competitive? I mean, so much of it has changed. So I'm not sure that criticism's fair, but moving forward over the next half decade, it's all about positioning North Carolina for whatever the next step is, whether that's conference realignment, whether it's a breakaway, whether it's being the dominant team in the ACC and punching a ticket to the college football playoff and basketball tournaments, whatever that next step is. I think North Carolina feels like they're going to need more, whatever more is, to be in that conversation.
Yeah, that's very well said. I think it's all kind of happened in the last 2 or 3 years too. It's like, all right, we got to get ready for this. I think increasing enrollment's a big part as well, and that's probably why Lee Roberts was brought on to handle the financial aspects of that and growing the university, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, 5,000 new students over the next 10 years. I mean, they started this year. The incoming class here of 25 will have 500 additional freshmen or 500 additional students. I think they'll all be freshmen. And then each subsequent year, they're going to add 500 more students over the next 10 years, grow the university. And I think that leads into kind of what's next for Bubba Cunningham. I don't know how much your listeners are aware, but this Carolina North project, expanding the campus out to the old Horace Williams Airport space, is of vital interest to not only the university, but to athletics. And I think Bubba Cunningham's going to have a large role in that.
Yeah, I think you're referencing the Carolina Insider podcast a lot. Is that what you're mentioning? Some of the stuff Bubba said?
Yeah, we were on the same call. We were on the same call yesterday. There was a call, but that several of us were on with Bubba Cunningham and on the record call.
Gotcha.
Inside Carolina was on that as well. And then that's separate, than the Carolina Insider podcast, which he did. I think before our call, but there was a call with several local media, including myself. And that's where I'm getting a lot of this information from. I have not listened to the podcast yet, but we had a 25-minute conversation with Bubba Cunningham yesterday where he talked, I think, largely about a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, I guess my invite got lost in the mail there. I have to hit up Robbie, the lovely Robbie Pickerel Evans, to see where my invite got on that. CBS Sports here. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, like the next step, Bubba. So there's Carolina North. The idea is that that's where the Smith Center is going to go. It's a huge plot of land. I mean, there's some awesome trails back in there too, but part of it is the university-owned. Does UNC own that airport?
My understanding is they bought that land when the airport went under or whatever. When I was a student, too many years ago to recall, I think that was a functioning airport. I think that actually was an airport that people could land at. My understanding is that it's not a functioning airport anymore, and Carolina owns the land out there.
So maybe that's one of the projects that Bubba is going to work on is moving the Smith Center out there. Inside Carolina reported, maybe I'm sure WRAL as well, that that's the desired place for the new Smith Center. So around that comes maybe some dorms, maybe some academic buildings, maybe some commercial buildings, or privately owned apartments. Like expanding, you need places for these additional 5,000 students to live. It's only a mile and a half from campus, a mile from Franklin Street, right down MLK there. So that is going to be interesting, and that might be one of the special projects that Bubba does. Let's quickly get into Bubba's role that you, from what you've heard, his role will be the next 2 years. Anything to add on that, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the basketball arena, which has been, basically an issue since he got hired. How do you maximize? Again, we've talked all about revenue. You're not maximizing revenue out of the Smith Center. You can't really hold concerts there. You have no luxury boxes, no suites, no club level, no high end seating options to bring in the high rollers, and so you've got some parking issues, although not the worst parking issues, but anyhow, you can't maximize the value of the Smith Center the way it's currently configured. What is it going to cost to redo it, or do you move it to somewhere where you can have a public-private partnership to get the thing built? To what we're seeing at the Lenovo Center in Raleigh, where you have office space, retail, living quarters, everything around it, and you can generate more revenue from the ancillary businesses that are around it. You can build, not a 20,000 seat arena, but a 14,000 seat arena. But it has luxury boxes. It has club seats. It has all the high end options to generate. You'll actually get more revenue out of a 14,000 seat arena than you get out of a 20,000 seat arena because of the pricing models that you can go to. I think that's, and then you can probably hold concerts there. You can use it for other events that can generate more revenue for the university. I think all of this is tied together, and UNC, I think, understands, or at least Lee Roberts, I think, understands, Bubba Cunningham understands that, we've got the basketball program should be generating more revenue, and they need a better facility, all that stuff. And so I think, you're going to see Carolina North become a focus of the university here in the next couple of years. And whether basketball goes there or not, and I think it will, can be sort of the tent pole that drives students out there. Maybe you have dorms out there, as you mentioned. Maybe maybe you move the law school out there. Maybe you move a new engineering school out there. A biosciences engineering school. Whatever, you're going to see that build. NC State has built the Centennial campus. It's been a success. I imagine Carolina North is going to be very similar.
Yeah, got to get bigger. You got to get bigger. You got to have more places for people to live and go to school. And then if you move, it's going to happen. They have to build a new Smith Center, and that's wherever it's going to be. It needs to happen. The luxury seats are so important. A better experience. The Smith Center is pretty shitty. I know the memories are there, and it's a beautiful court, and it's all Carolina blue, but the depths of it, the concourse, are pretty bad. You can't maximize everything you want to do to get the revenue there. And then you could tear down the Smith Center and add more dorms there, add another parking deck to support XYZ, expand the business school. It just opens up more opportunity down there as well. So it just makes sense that the university will move north because it's not that far. All right, Brian, anything else? Yeah, I think that was pretty good.
I would add one more thing. We've talked about a lot of this stuff. I think we're going to be surprised at the speed at which some of this starts to happen. Yeah. Rick Barricat talked about, some of these concert series ideas around football games. I think you're going to see that this year. Bubba told me, the Coca-Cola this and the Modelo that and the, the blank concert series this. I think we're going to see this revenue generation that we keep talking about. I think we're going to see it in action starting September 1st. Starting with some concert series, expanded footprint around Kenan Stadium, where it'll be easier to get food, easier to get drink, easier to get back into your seats. I think sometimes when we have these conversations, we talk about the future, and when Steve Newmark gets here and all that, I think Carolina is moving super quick on a lot of this, and we are going to see some of it, with the start of the Belichick era on September 1st.
Yeah, someone have to pay for that contract. Someone's got to pay for the $10 million. I understand there's going to be tailgating too in the lower quad. which is
Yeah,
a very
they want
new
to stretch
addition.
it all the way to like Wilson Library and beyond with this concert series. And I don't know which kind of acts they're going to get, but I don't know if that'll be before games or after games. I guess probably depends on what time the game is. But I think there are going to be more tents around the bell tower.
Bell
I mean,
tower.
I think they may do something with Stadium Drive. I mean, all these ideas are on the table, and I think they're putting them into action. It's no more like, hey, we'll get to this next year. I think Carolina has at times gone slowly with a lot of this stuff, including beer and alcohol sales, including how many sponsors you have and where you put all their stuff. I think all the guardrails are off at this point, and it is all about maximizing this asset that they have with Belichick and all the attention that's going to be on it.
Yeah, it's a great point about how UNC has been so reactive and slow and kind of wait and seeing and being very slow on moving on things. And now they're going. Belichick, Newmark, Bearcat, all this different aspects to increase revenue and kind of be on the cutting edge, or at least try to keep up with the other conferences. I mean, the tailgating scene has needed a revamp for 20 years. I've always thought they should close down Stadium Drive, figure out a way to make it work where it could be more of a festival vibe. I think tailgating in the quad makes too much sense. I did a kind of a research project on that once, and it's the old trees which have always prevented tailgating in the quad. Like, you can't have foot traffic and all that action around the old trees in the quad. That's just it sucks. That's a horrible way of thinking that prevents growth and activity around football. But there's
plenty of space in the pit and around that area too.
Yeah,
I mean, how underutilized is that space? You probably see that space more than I do on a game day, but how underutilized is all that space?
Yeah. Sell spots, sell 25 spots with tents, and make it an open carry. Open container. Sorry, not open carry. Open container.
A different kind of carry.
Yeah, that's right. That'd be great. I mean, you got to do it. You kind of got to catch up with the Joneses here. All right, Brian, we appreciate your time hopping on here at 7 a.m. on Wednesday. Enjoy your trip to Chicago. This was a great kind of explainer for all the big news that happened yesterday with the hiring of Steve Newmark as UNC's next AD. Guys, we appreciate you listening to Big Hitters Only. Check out Delta Spirits, drinkdeltaspirits.com for all your THC and cannabis drink needs. Promo code BHO10.